So we're going to talk a little bit about overcoming. We're going to talk a little bit about perseverance this morning. Um, I didn't get to all my points in the first service, so I'm going to try this time. We'll see. But a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Steve was talking about the storm that the disciples went through in the boat with Jesus, and it really hit me like a sack of bricks, and I've been meditating on it ever since. So I wanted to revisit the storm this morning and go through a little bit of my perspective, and I wanted us as a group to be able to ask ourselves some questions about what it looks like to follow Jesus, what it looks like to be in a boat with him, what it looks like going out to do the things that he has called us to do. So we're going to dive right into it. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 8, and we're going to pick up in 18. Thanks again, Amy. What would I do without you? All right, is it up there? I assume it's up there. Let's go. Now, when Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to depart to the other side of the sea. Then a scribe came to him, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus said to him, "The foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Another of the disciples, catch that, another of the disciples, said to him, "Lord, permit me first to go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Follow me and allow the dead to bury their own dead." When he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being covered with the waves. But Jesus himself was asleep. And they came to him and woke him, saying, "Save us, O Lord. We are perishing." He said to them, "Why are you afraid, you men of little faith?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. The men were amazed, and they said, "What kind of man is this that even the winds and the seas obey him?" Exciting story, isn't it? It's, in my early Christian days, diving into these stories, like naive as I was, in faith, I was like, I want this stuff to happen in my life. I want to see the winds calm and the waves calm and the sea calm at the word of Jesus. And just so happens that life happened, and I stood up to some waves and I stood up to some wind, and I didn't see that happen. And I began to, I think, be able to relate to these disciples, that were afraid in that boat. And I wanted us this morning to put ourselves in the shoes of the disciples. And so before Jesus commanded them to go to the other side, you catch this in the first couple of verses of this story. He says to the scribe, he says, before they set out on this mission to cross the sea, he says to the scribe, he says, "The foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." This is what Jesus said in response to the scribe saying, "I'm going to follow you. I'm going to go where you're going. I've seen all these things." This story's on the other side of Jesus delivering the Sermon on the Mount and healing all of these people, the paralytic, and bringing people back to life who were presumed dead, and just finished healing Peter's mother-in-law who was extremely ill. And, everybody around him, it says the crowds were growing and everyone was pressing in upon him. And this scribe stands up and says, "You know what? I want what you got. This is pretty snazzy. This is pretty cool what's going on around this Jesus guy. I'm going to follow you." And Jesus' response to him was, "Well, yeah, are you sure? Because foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but where I'm going, the Son of Man has none of that." And what he was saying in that statement is you want to follow me. What's not guaranteed is going to be guaranteed. What's not guaranteed is the comforts of this world. You want the protection and the comfort of the hole in the ground that a fox can dig. You want the assurity of location that the nest of a bird has to lay its young and to establish his life. If you want to step in this boat with me, you're not going to have all of those things guaranteed. And we assume that this scribe says, "Oh gosh, I really wanted that comfort. I really wanted some of that assurity of culture that says, I've got to have this, and I've got to have that, and I've got to make this of myself, and I've got to, and I've got to, and I've got to." And he says, "Oh gosh, I don't know if I can get in this boat with you, Jesus." And he drifts off. And the next guy comes to him, and he considers himself a disciple already. It says that a disciple came to him. One of the disciples came to him and said, "Jesus, permit me first." And this is the harsh statement that we all, at least I, wrestle with all the time. It's like, really, Jesus, you said this to him? Like, he goes and he says, "Jesus, permit me first to bury my father." And Jesus' response is what? It says, "Let the dead bury the dead." Ouch. What is he saying in this? What is he getting at? He's saying, don't settle for the expectation of culture. When you follow me, you can't expect that you're going to have these things that our culture tells you that you need to have. Imagine me. I hope I never have to say this to anybody, but imagine me, a pastor, saying, "No, don't go to your father's funeral. Don't go to your father's funeral. Let the dead bury the dead." You would probably hate me, and probably rightfully so. I hope I never have to say that to somebody. But here is Jesus saying, you don't need that. That's going to stop you from getting to where I'm going because the boat's departing, and the boat's departing now. Make your choice. Get in the boat or don't. And it says, so then the 12, I'm assuming, I don't know. Some of the stories say there were several boats, so it could be a bunch of other disciples as well. But they decide, okay, that was a little bit much. I don't know what that was all about, but let's get in this boat anyways. I still want to see these miracles. I still want to follow this man of authority who's we've never heard anyone preach like he's preached, with such authority, with such assurance, with such truth. I'm going with him. I'm getting in this boat. And they get in the boat and they go to the other, they start their journey to get to the other side, and then the storm arises. And this Jesus that they're following, who just said the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, has laid his head on the bow of the boat, fast asleep. I think about that. He just said, I have nowhere to lay my head, and he's perfectly asleep in the storm. Perfectly asleep. And the waves, I've been watching a couple on YouTube that sails around the world, and one of the videos they did is, this is what it sounds like when you try to sleep in our boat during a storm, and it's just like, wha-bam, 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 the waves hitting the boat all night long. They said, one of their updates was, needless to say, we didn't get any sleep last night. Right? And here's Jesus fast asleep on the boat. Set out on this journey. We know from Jesus' own account, he says things like, I never do anything that I do not see the Father doing. I never say anything that I do not hear the Father saying. And so we can assume, we can make the conclusion that Jesus knew that the Father was sending them across the sea. Right? We can know that what got Jesus in that boat was the appointment of the Father. And I'm appointing you to cross the sea and take your disciples with you. What got the disciples in the boat was the invitation of Jesus saying, come follow me. There's a lot of requirements to following me. There might be some difficulty. There might be some challenge. But come and follow me. And those that were willing to step up to the plate, those that were willing to face the challenge, got in that boat with them. And then they began to perish by their own accounts. We are perishing. Wake up, Jesus, where are you? You not see the waves? Do you not see the wind? Do you not see that we are dying here? And Steve so elegantly said it the other week when Jesus rose up and asked him, "Why do you have no faith? You think that I am this amazing Lord. Some of you have called me Lord at this point. Do you think I perish in boats?" See, we're not perishing tonight because the Father sent us to the other side. Because the Father appointed me to take you to the other side. You think this wind and these waves have the authority to take us out? No. But in our lives, we make this, I'd like you to ask yourself the question, have you come to a place where you're confident, you say you want to get in that boat with Jesus? Not everybody in this room has to have made that decision yet. Maybe you're hearing the name of Jesus expressed for the first time, and his invitation, he wants to prove himself to you. He wants to prove that he's real. He wants to prove that you can trust him to get in that boat. But if you've known him for any amount of time, like I've known him, you have to come to this decision. Am I willing to get in that boat? And if I assume, or if I proclaim that I've gotten into that boat with him, what am I listening to? Am I listening to those waves knock up against the boat? Wha-bam, wha-bam. Am I listening to the waves that are or the wind that's howling? And what are these waves? What are these winds that are blowing against us? The lies, the confusion, the fears of this world, the expectations of our culture, to be able to have a hole, to be able to have a nest that we can rest our head upon, the ability to say, no, first I'm going to go bury my father. It's not unreasonable, is it? Think of our culture. Is it unreasonable? It's not. I want a job. I want a house. I want somewhere to lay my head. I want the freedom to make my own decision to when I'm going to bury my father and not bury my father. Culture's pressing in on us, pressing in on us, pressing in on us. This is your right. These are your rights. These are what you should be able to expect for yourself. But you see, we're on a mission to get to the other side. We're on a mission to go where the Father has told us to go. And the disciples, they haven't gotten to a place of understanding this yet. So we're going to go to the next storm, the next journey that Jesus sent his disciples on. And so this is in Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. Thank you, Amy. I'll call you my Vanna White. Verse 22. And so this is right after Jesus and the disciples feed the 5,000. Again, miracles are popping off. Jesus is proving to be the one that they are expecting, the Messiah, able to do the most ridiculous things that you have ever heard of. 5,000, it's more like 10 to 12,000 because the culture back then, you know this, didn't count the women and the children. I'm sorry, guys, but they didn't. So it could be like 12,000, could be 15,000, depending on how productive these people were at making children, right? We don't know, but it was a lot of people out of not a lot of food, fed, just finished, literally. He's wrapping the party up. He's sending the people home. And he tells his disciple, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he sent the crowds away. After he had sent the crowds away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. But the boat was already a long distance from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary, going in the opposite direction that they wanted to go. They wanted to get to that side, and the wind was trying to push them back this way. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. Get out of town. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear, but immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter said to him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." And Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But seeing the wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind stopped. Here they are, these disciples, a little further along in the journey, a little further along in the relationship with Jesus, a little further along in their experience of seeing him do the unexplainable. The things we just long for, I dreamt, I still dreaming of. Seeing the things that Jesus did. And they get in that boat, and the wind says, "You're supposed to go that way, but not today, guys, not today. We're going this way. Let's start worrying about this thing. Let's start worrying about that thing. Let's start considering this. Let's start getting, in your life, you, no matter where you are in this room, no matter where you consider yourself to be in a journey with Jesus, there is a wind blowing, and it's not in your favor. There's a wind blowing, and it's not to keep on going, guys. We got this. Let everybody love Jesus. Maria, preaching on Wednesday, did an excellent job pointing out the world is going to hate you. The world's not going to agree with you wanting to go over there. The world doesn't want you to go over there, because over there is the kingdom. Over there is the rule of Jesus Christ. Over there is, you've got to make a decision to believe that this Jesus is who he says that he is. At his name, every knee will bow and every tongue confess. He's put you in a boat, and he's calling you to the other side. He's commanding you to go. If you claim to be a follower of Jesus Christ, he's commanding you to go to the other side. And we have this wind trying to push us backwards. What is it in your life that's trying to push you backwards? I know for me, I was told to go to the other side of the continent, in my case, coming from the East Coast to the West Coast, to Orville. The Lord clearly said, you guys are going to Orville. There's a bunch of circumstance surrounding us getting here, but he said, you're going to Orville. And you know what arose is a lot of wind and a lot of waves. I got here expecting they're going to recognize everything that I've achieved before I got here, and I'm going to be just a superstar of the Father's house, and they're so blessed to have me. And Steve, as the loving, gracious father that he is, and Jordy and Derek, as the gracious fathers that they are, started pointing out everything that was wrong in me. Every prideful arrogance that I lived in, every selfish ambition that I had, my sea looked like me having to face my selfishness over and over and over again. Like, 5 years of me crossing this journey of, There were some amazing highlights in the middle of those 5 years. Don't pretend like I don't want you guys to believe that I just suffered for 5 years, but there were these encounters with truth where I had to face the selfishness and the ambition in me that was not lining up with the will of God for my life. One of the biggest ones was my pride to build something. I was a contractor, and I had a successful business before coming here, and I was just on the cusp of really kind of breaking through. There's like a ceiling that you got to break through when you're young, and everybody doubts that you can do any of the things that you say that you can do. And all of a sudden, I'm having these designers come and want to hire me, some that have had rewards from HGTV, and they're saying, hey, you want to do this, multi-$100,000 project and all this stuff. And God calls us to Orville, where I have it's like the economy is still crashed here. I had the opportunity to buy a house when I got here that I am just kicking myself for because it was so cheap. But I looked at the outlooks, I said, that would lose me money, and a lot of it. I'm not doing that. It would have made me a lot of money. Anyways. And Steve was, and Jordy and Derek were saying, that time's not right for that, dude. You're not here to be a contractor. You're not here to make money. And I was like, I want money. Do you know how hard it is to live not making money? That's that wind. That's that waves. That's that discouragement. That's the world pressing in against me, telling me, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go there. That thing over there, that's not really as good as he's saying it is. It's not really his will. You see, Satan, the partner of the world, he calls himself the Lord of the air, the puppet master of the world. He's sneaky, he's crafty, he's very convincing sometimes, but he is not original. He is not creative. He cut himself off from the Creator, so he lost his ability to be creative. So he's been using this same tactic against us from the very beginning of time, saying, is it really like he said that it was going to be? Is it really? Did he really say you can't have that fruit and eat your cake too? Right? And he's using it with us day in and day out. Half the conversations I have are just, God, don't you understand the circumstance I'm in and how difficult this is and how uncomfortable and how hard I'm having to fight and I feel like the whole world is pressing in against me and then I've got this health thing and I've got this finance thing and I've got this discouragement thing and I've got this and nobody respects me. Nobody understands where I'm coming from. Such a load of garbage. I mean, it's not when you guys tell me. Sorry. I love you guys. Keep telling me things. Keep telling me things. I love you guys. But it's also such a load of garbage. Because he knows. He knows. He's the one that invited us into the boat. He's the one that knows what's on the other side. I tried to describe it to somebody last week, like what it looks like for me on the other side of this journey that I've been on of overcoming my selfishness and stuff. It's like, I just don't even have words. I don't even have words. I try to look back at who I was and what I thought of myself, what I thought of the world, how I thought I was supposed to serve Jesus. I just don't even have words for how different I am. My circumstances have not changed that much. My wife still battles her health. My finances, please, Lord, they're changing. They're changing. It's like I don't have control over when I'm going to bury my father or not. I don't have control over when the wind is going to blow upon me and the waves are going to crash up over my boat. I don't have all of this comfort that I want to have in my life. But I don't fear it. I don't fear it. It doesn't have the authority to take me out. I'm in the boat that Jesus put me in. He sent me out to go there. And I'm going to get there. So question, I want you guys to consider for yourselves today is where is he sending you? What boat has he put you in? What are the waves? What are the winds that want to tell you that that's not what he wants for you? Is it you've been called to be a light in your family? What waves are trying to distract you from that, discourage you from that? Your children aren't really going to listen to you. Your family doesn't really love you. They don't really respect what you're doing. They think you're crazy. Why would you go to a weird church like that? You're not really giving your money away. You're not really giving your time away, are you? Why would you do that? Doesn't that take away from you? Doesn't that put you in a more difficult position? Doesn't that fill your time up too much? You don't have enough time for yourself. You're not really going to believe that Jesus can protect you from all of the germs that are encroaching us. You're not really going to step out in faith and pray for that person. What if they think you're stupid? What if your prayer doesn't work? The wind, it's pushing us. The waves are crashing in on us. But He sent us. He's called us. Father's house, He's called us. And more than ever before, we're in His boat. Clearer than it's ever been for me, I'm in His boat. Today, I might only get 2 feet of progress on this sea, but I'm moving forward. I'm resisting. I'm clinging on to His truth. There's another storm that I want to hit before we wrap up here. It's in Acts 27, and this is the storm that Paul faced. So these storms that the disciples faced, they faced them pre the Holy Spirit being poured out upon them. Holy Spirit gets poured out upon Peter. Poor Peter gets picked on all the time. But Holy Spirit gets poured out upon Peter. And Peter changes the face of the earth. He knocks down the door for us. Bam! Knocks down the door for Paul. And Peter goes into Jerusalem and calls them all out. You guys saw everything that he did just as I saw everything that he did. You saw the paralyzed walk. You saw the thousands fed. You saw the blind see, the deaf ears open, the mute speak. You saw it all. Yet you crucified him. Yet you put him up on that cross. This Messiah that you claimed you guys have been waiting for your entire life, you rejected him. But guess what? He rose, and now he's in me. And I'm going to keep doing what he sent me on a mission to do, which is preach the good news, which is deliver the oppressed, which is declare the kingdom of God. And he went out and he healed people in Jerusalem, and he went out and he declared the truth of Jesus. And he passed the torch to the other disciples and to that whole group of apostles that rose up from Peter deciding, I'm going to keep walking on that sea. Paul gets to the point where he's spent years and years in ministry, and he gets to the point where he knows the end of his life is coming, but he knows that God has told him he needs to go to Rome. And he tells his friends around him, and he's saying, I'm going to Jerusalem because I know I'm supposed to go to Rome. But they're like, if you go to Jerusalem, you're going to get arrested. And it's gonna end in your death, Paul. Come on. Think clearly, dude. You don't want to die. You don't want to give up what life you have left to go to prison. Paul says, I love you guys, but I'm going. It's where Jesus is sending me. And so he gets to Jerusalem, he's imprisoned, and then all of a sudden he appeals to Caesar and then begins this journey of going to Rome. And he finally, after years, gets on this boat, and he's juiced. He's a prisoner, but he's juiced. He's like, I'm going where I'm supposed to go. I'm going across to Rome. Yes. I mean, he was shackled, so it's like, yes. Right? But he's going. He's going to where he's always known he's supposed to go. And a storm arises. Right? And so we're picking up Acts 27, verse 20. It says, "Neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small storm was assailing us. From then on, all hope of our being saved was gradually abandoned." Who's been there? Don't raise your hands. I've been there. "When they had gone a long time without food," dang it, "then Paul stood up in their midst and said, 'Men, you ought to have followed my advice and did not have set sail from Crete and incurred this damage and loss. Yet now I urge you, keep your courage. For there will be no loss of life among you, but only the ship. For this very night an angel of God to whom I belong to God." Dude, he put me on this boat. He wanted me to go to Rome. He's been telling me for years, "Hey, Paul, we're going to Rome." "Who I belong and whom I serve stood before me saying, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand before Caesar, and behold, God has granted you all those who are sailing with you. Therefore, keep up your courage, men, for I believe that God will turn out exactly as I have been told.'" Oh, Jesus. See, that Satan, he's crafty. He's convincing sometimes, but he's not original. He's going to try and attack your provision. He's going to try and attack your protection. He's going to try and attack your idea of your position, your respect, your authority, your ability to make decisions for yourself. He's going to try and get you to be afraid of all these things. "I don't have enough money to go across the sea. I don't have enough protection. What if my son gets sick? What if my wife gets sick? What if I get sick? What if I break a bone in the middle of rowing? That's painful. What if I tell them to throw anchor before in Crete and they don't listen to me and they set out on the sea anyways? I don't have the position to tell these people what to do. I'm a prisoner." It's going to turn out exactly like I told you it's going to turn out, Paul. You're going to Rome. You're going to stand before Caesar, and it's going to be exactly like I told you it's going to be. That's the boat I want to be in. Is that the boat that you want to be in? Stand with me. And if you're willing to possibly be without a foxhole, and possibly be out without a nest, and possibly be told that you're going to have to do something in a time that you don't want to do it, or not do something in a time you really want to do it, pray this prayer with me. Jesus, help me get in that boat with you. Help me not to be discouraged by the wind and the waves. Not to let culture press in on me. Not to let Satan speak to me. His cunning little lies. Help me see your truth. Help me believe it's going to turn out exactly like you say. Exactly like you said. Now there's two storms that I want you guys to respond to this morning. If you feel like you've been in this boat with him, and there's a storm in your life that's trying to discourage you and convince you to make a different decision, to abandon ship, as it would, it's time to get encouraged. You're not in that boat alone. you're not in that boat alone. People are here to help you successfully sail to the other side. Now, if you've gotten in your own boat, you said, "To heck with Jesus' boat, I'm going that way." You're probably facing some storms, because such is life. It's time to abandon that ship. It's time to get in the right boat. It's time to confess, "Lord, I've gone the wrong way. Help me go the right way."
Thanks for watching the Father's House Orville YouTube channel, but don't stop there. We'd love you to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss a live service or a video. Help us spread the message of Jesus by sharing this video with your friends. You can also support the Father's House financially by clicking the Give button. Thanks again for watching today, and we hope to see you again soon.